Welcome back to another day of me not being awake enough for this. Today we're streaming another Exceed match from Harry Potter's A Man from All Seasons event. The whole theme of this event is teams of 3 join up, pick parts of an Exceed roster, and then play it against each other. Well, they play it against their opponents, they don't play it against each other. The real game they're playing against each other is, what parts of the roster do you want? No 2 players on the same team can play the same characters, so they all have to draft 4 characters from each season, which makes things a little fuzzy with Season 3 and 4. Season 5, the other available season for this tournament, has more than enough characters to make sure that people don't step on each other's toes. The goal of this team tournament is to attempt to gain 9 points during each round of the tournament. To do so, they have to pair up against members of an opposing team. Each character can only be used once, and once a character is played, win or lose, they are unable to be played for the rest of the tournament. So we're gonna take a look at our players real quick. They seem to be still setting up or choosing their characters or something. Zoom out a bit. On the bottom side, we are playing with Mew2mi, and on top side is Fusion Friend. I believe that's his name. Yes, Fusion Friend. I have to try to remind myself that they are not the same as popular streamer Future Friend. These are 2 players that I have not seen much. I believe Mew2mi joined within the past month or 2. And I'm unsure about anything regarding Fusion Friend. You can see their respective rosters on the board right now. For Mew2mi, it looks like they are playing a lot of Shotos from at least Season 3. Season 4 and 5 are a little bit more mixed, though Season 5 seems to focus a bit more on the range side of things. And honestly, if we were to try to put all this together, I'd say the combination of Ryu, Sagat, Enchantress, Fight, Rachel, New, a good half the team is just very strong range characters. On the opposite side, Fusion Friend has some very interesting picks. Cammy and Sea Viper is always a pair that I love seeing together because they are often considered the worst characters from Season 3, which, given Season 3's fairly high quality and the tournament standard, I would say that being the worst doesn't mean a whole lot. The rest of their team is fairly low difficulty up until we get to Lychee. So I sense a lot of comfort picks here. And comfort picks are totally fine if you're a new player. And I know enough experienced players that just prefer to play the same 3 characters over and over, as opposed to branching out. I'm going to instruct the players on what they need to do. Alright. So players should have the instructions they need. So overall, I'm excited to see what these players do, since I have never seen them play before. I'm not sure if they participated in competitive events before. I'm not sure how much they've played Exceed before. So probably questions I should have asked them before hopping in here. I might ask them these questions after the game finishes. Looking at both rosters, it does look like we have opportunities for some mirror plays. We have Bison on both sides, Iron Tiger, both King Knight and Polar Knight, and Fight. Our Season 4 has a fairly strong chance of being a mirror match. Now, on a confidence level, I would say that picking Sagat and Rachel says a lot about you as a person, because those are not easier characters to play. But I would also say the same for picking Lychee. So honestly, I kind of want to see what kind of play we see. Because these are definitely not the choices of newer players. Unless they did it purely because they like the way the character looks. Which one of my sparring opponents pretty much does for all of his mains. He says, "Ah, cute girl, must put on team." It looks like the first match that we are seeing here is Propellor Knight versus Sagat. This should be fairly exciting. So for the uninitiated, Sagat is a zoning-based character with pretty good close-range tools, but they're fairly weak on defense. His whole thing is being able to go faster than you whenever he needs to, which makes him very strong in the mid-range. Propeller Knight, on the other hand, is a character who has fairly weak attacks, but they get bonuses as long as he's at the appropriate range, which, when he exceeds, becomes very easy to do, considering that he can move before he strikes. With the amount of mobility that Propeller Knight has available to him, Sagat may have trouble keeping him out. But for the experienced Sagat player, this generally isn't an issue. Because attacks like Low Tiger Shot, when they stop being reliable, can be boosted. He's got quite a good boost kit to work with. We stare at what he's got. For his close-range options, he has Terrifying on Tiger Uppercut to pretty much demolish the opponent's options. We have Massive to ensure the opponent can't escape his attacks. Swift Destruction to punish mid-speed. And of course, quick backdash to establish range 3, which, when you're forced to fight close range, becomes Sagat's best range. It allows him to play spike and dive face up to strike at pretty reliable speeds. On the other hand, if Propellor can't close the gap, he's forced to rely on some expensive and unreliable tools. Propeller pulls a pretty good sweep that hits it up to range 4. On top of that, we have his projectile cannonball, which unfortunately, with its slow speed and low guard, is a bit more unreliable of a slow fireball than others, such as low Tiger Shot. Otherwise, Propeller has some good range 4 tools for poking, and being able to obtain gauge allows him to use his more dangerous ultras reliably. But for the most part, he's looking to either stun out attacks with his more reliable range 4 options, or to just dive in with swoop and not get hit by anything. Looks like Propeller will be taking first turn in this matchup, which gives him a lot of mix-up options to work with. Sagat on defense at range 4 doesn't have a whole lot to work with. His usually fast Tiger Shot is only speed 4 on defense. Generally, the mix-up here is either Propeller attempting to poke with Propeller Pull, or with Headwind, or see if he can bait a block out with his Cannonball. On defense, Sagat's tools are not great. Playing low Tiger Shot is not the worst idea. Tiger Uppercut losing. Propeller Pull will be drawing him into range 1, but Tiger Uppercut's going to lose its armor as an after effect. Unfortunate loss of Terrifying. Unfortunately, losing Terrifying means we can't play it in this perfect position too. So Sagat's range 1 tools. They're definitely worse than Propellers, but he has quite a few of them. Tiger Knee, very helpful for obtaining advantage. It's effectively a guarded assault. Tiger Uppercut generally acts as a second copy of block, but sometimes it does work. Having 4 power on top of 3 armor is nothing to scoff at. Low Step Kick exists for Sagat, but it costs gauge to use. And at 2 power, it doesn't tend to do very much. So in this matchup, pretty much like all Sagat matchups, Sagat is looking for ways to obtain gauge. Once he establishes gauge, he can either start threatening things, like his Tiger Destruction, which is basically like dive if dive hit for 7. Or he wants to exceed so he can get +1 power and +1 speed on his attacks. +1 power doesn't seem like a whole lot, but with attacks like Sweep getting to 7 power, attacks like Low Step Kick getting a 3 so that they can still stun against focus, Sagat gains some very good extra tools, on top of just being able to leverage extra power, which is always very useful to have. Propellor boosting Windstream. This will establish range, which is good for Sagat. Speaking of establishing range, we're looking at Tiger Shot right off the bat. This does not bode well for Propellor. He cannot push Sagat out. This is a very good spot to play Swoop if available. Instead, we're seeing Focus to soak most of the damage. We're looking at a 1-power Tiger Shot that's going to gain 2 gauge. As well as drawing the card. It's unfortunate low Tiger Shot is already used up, because this would be the perfect range to start using it. Unfortunately, Sagat is now at the mercy of Propellor's actions. Once again, Sagat does not have great range 4 tools against Propeller Knight. This said, having 2 gauge means Tiger Destruction is an available option. Tiger Destruction, of course, hitting at ranges 3 and 4. 7 power, 4 speed. For defensive play here, we are attempting to not lose to the mix-up. Though seeing that both Headwind and Propellor pull her down, this is very likely to be a Cannonball. The only option that we have against Cannonball is to play something that closes in like Dive. Tiger Uppercut, dodging the Cannonball by closing within its range gap. Sagat with 2 gauge and significantly better resource advantage than Propeller Knight. This is a pretty free turn to play whatever he wants to. Choosing to prepare, giving himself a little bit more of a resource edge. Unfortunately, giving Propellor opportunity to do the same. But with no Terrifyings left, Sagat cannot control Propeller Knight's hand. So currently as Sagat, we're looking for a few different options. We're looking for Tiger Knee to try to start chaining attacks. We're looking for sweeps to try to do some damage to Propeller Knight's hand. But really, we're looking to spend our gauge so that hopefully we can get a reshuffle in sooner than later. Some good tools have already dropped. And I think starting to smash Tiger Knees into Propellor means that we can get those options back faster. Choosing to use up the mid-speed to play defend. This does make Tiger Knee far safer. Propellor here should be looking for a way to get 2 gauge. As once Propeller Knight exceeds, he pretty much begins to start controlling the game as much as he wants to. Not only does Propeller get to move before striking, but he also gets an immediate reposition on the board. Propeller going in for a strike. Crosses, fairly good play here. Oops. Deciding to switch out the attack. I said, cross is a fairly good play here. Propeller pull is valuable. Sweep is valuable. There aren't too many other options that are worth playing at this point. His lunging attack might be useful, but there's the chance that it gets caught by sweep. Heck, there's a chance it gets caught by something like Tiger Knee. I think on defense here, Sagat probably wants to play something safe. Both Sweep and Tiger Knee call out most options. Critical low step kick. Oh man. That's devastating. Loses the sweep to a 2-power attack. Very good call out by Sagat. It lost to the cross, but it beat most other things, so definitely sensible to play. This feels like a Tiger Knee. And with one less sweep in hand, Tiger Knee becomes far safer to play. Question here, do we play from hand or do we wild swing? Interesting, playing swoop. Oh, and that's gonna get caught by sweep as well. This is a 3-power swoop that we're looking at. And on the one hand, Propeller is gonna get some reasonable gauge here, but pretty much spends the rest of their resources to obtain it. Oh, unless they choose to not gain the gauge. Reasonable when you're this low on hand, but this is a dangerous spot to be in. This guy has a few options here. We could exceed. But since we're at range 3, we can do some really nasty things. Tiger Destruction at this range will corner Propeller Knight very hard. And unless he has Focus in hand right now, it's gonna hurt. Tiger Knee also very strong play to start establishing sort of gauge dominance. Even Assault at this point, very strong play. Assault into Tiger Knee is really what I would want to do. Sagat choosing to not do anything with his action. Playing passively is a very interesting choice. But I suppose when your opponent is in the corner like this, you can afford to play passively. +1 power makes playing Tiger Knee on defense a dangerous proposition. Unfortunately, Sagat is in a really weird spot. Best play at this point, probably Cross. At this point, we haven't seen a Cross from Sagat, so it's extremely likely that he has one in hand. This isn't a strike that you choose to interact with. Wild Swinging. Into Cross! Yeah! That's what we want to see. We're in a good position now. Propeller's out of the corner. Sagat avoided the attack. Onus is on Sagat to do something. Sagat manages to keep his range advantage, even with the opposing player closing in. The Cross would have avoided anything, but being able to keep range 3 is still very helpful. Being able to play a safe Cross is always nice. Especially as Sagat. And speaking of safe plays, this is a very safe dive. Speed 5. Re-establishing previous board position. Propeller, only one card in hand, significant resource disadvantage. Needs to do something to turn this game around. Unfortunately, 2 empty cross plays is leaving Propeller in a sore position. Propeller choosing to draw cards makes sense. So the question here is if Sagat has low Tiger Shot or not. If he does, exceeding isn't the worst idea. He wastes the card draw just a little bit. But he does establish a range where he is far more dominant. But considering how cornered the opponent is, it might be worth just spending that gauge on Ultras. Instead, we just throw things like Assault and Tiger Knee, and try to chain as many attacks as we can into each other. Propeller being a low hand means that defenses are a lot less reliable. Boosting power. This is a fairly significant threat. I want to say that pushes Tiger Knee to 7 power? This makes low step kick safe. Makes Tiger Knee scary. It makes Tiger Destruction even scarier. Opponent plays a single card. At this point, there's a strong chance that Sagat has EX Assault available. Playing Tiger Knee into Saber Lunge. Good play. Saber Lunge is a nasty one. Having a 6 speed option, very, very useful. Unfortunately, the advantage doesn't do anything here. This Propellor stays behind on resources even still. And then takes 7 from Sagat. Choosing to engage instead of returning to hand. Probably the correct choice. We've been having a hard time getting to that second gauge. Oh no, but putting it in gauge means Sagat gets a free dive attempt. Not over yet. Propellor has the gauge to exceed, and once Propellor exceeds, we can re-establish some sort of advantage. Question is, where do they move to? Establishing range 3 is dangerous, since Tiger Destruction still exists. But staying at range 1 isn't great either, since we're looking at all the fast attacks from Sagat. At 9 life, you don't want to deal with fast attacks. Sagat putting his extremely quality cards into his discard pile to recycle. With no low Tiger shots, this position isn't actually bad for Propeller Knight. This is the time to re-establish resources. Presumably, Sagat will go for a reshuffle next turn, and then attempt to pull for low Tiger shots. Alternatively, hitting with a regular Tiger shot at this range gives us 4 gauge, which puts Tiger Cannon online. Tiger Cannon isn't the most damaging attack, but it is pretty much unbeatable. And when your opponent's at 9 life, being pretty much unbeatable is a pretty good position to be in. Propeller choosing to not gain a resource advantage here. Unfortunately, I believe our only real threat here is Headwind. I'm not sure that the chip damage is worth establishing a range where Tiger Destruction can hit you. Speaking of Tiger Destruction, losing to Headwind. That, I believe, was a misplay. Very greedy play that unfortunately reduces Sagat's options on his turn significantly. He's not out yet. He still has access to his other copy of Tiger Shot, which, if played, will give him 2 gauge once more. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of reason to play super greedy when you're this far ahead on life and resources. Playing Reading with Tiger Shot. Into Spike. Rough. I would guess that the reading target there may have been Assault, may have been Block. Reading Black is a fairly safe play. Make sure that your opponent can't beat your cash-out attacks. And against an attack with such low power as Tiger Shot, blocking it just does not feel good. Back at range 5 with Sagat, not a whole lot of great options. Propeller Knight really should push an advantage here. Instead, choosing to close in with the remainder of their hand, giving Sagat another opportunity to punish them. Speed 6 Assault. This is pretty much a game ender. Yep. Even if this was blocked, Propeller would have to spend... I don't know if they had the opportunity to expend any resources. Only 2 cards available. That will mark the end of Game 1. Sagat very handily beating Propeller Knight. Heading back to the team rosters, we can see both Mew2mi's roster and Fusion Friends. So Mew2mi will have to pick a character from Seasons 4 or 5, while Fusion Friend will have to pick one from 3 or 5. Curious to see if Mew2mi will continue the zoner domination. A good question to ask yourself in this tournament is, how many characters do you actually know how to play? And which ones do you enjoy playing? And for the new player, we're going to be looking at a very depleted list. This does make things a little bit more exciting for the more experienced players, since the newer players are generally going to pick their comfort picks, and you really don't want to take those away from them. kind of want to see some fight get played. We've seen a lot of Enchantress in this tournament so far. And seeing some good Cammy or Viper players, always welcome. Would also be exciting to see a Tiger mirror. Tiger's a character that has a lot of player expression built into him. Oh, I definitely did not expect to be streaming today. In fact, I have a tournament match I need to play today. I have to try to collude with a team to play against with Moriarty. We both have opportunities to play mirrors, but I don't think we want to. Our characters feel too good for mirrors. They're not jank enough. We are both thinking of bringing, like, our worst characters, which would be kind of amusing. But I don't think we're doing any planning other than that. And here we have Rachel versus Jin. This is an interesting matchup. Rachel's very much a keep-away type of zoner. Unlike Sagat, Rachel doesn't get huge benefits for keeping the opponent at specific ranges. What she does have is the ability to have way more mobility than her opponent. Jin, on the other hand, is far more aggressive and way worse at range. His main long-range tools primarily consist of a 2-gauge Ultra, a fairly fast dive, and a kind of bad projectile. It does have enough guard on it to pretty much withstand any punishment from Rachel. In terms of fighting with Rachel, what we want to do is try to establish ranges where the opponent has to expend their resources to close in. Our Lobelia attacks help push the opponent out, and also help to toss basically some extra damage on the board with her Lightning Rod ability. Being able to lay down traps that punish the opponent for standing on them, or getting pushed onto them, helps her keep her damage output up, as well as keep her hand up, since it does return cards back to her hand. Against Jin's approaches, she has a few reasonable options. If she gets cornered, Electric Chair is a fairly safe option. Whirlwind acts as reversal at range 3, faster than most things that strike at range 3. And apart from that, Tempest Dahlia and Baden Lily, if nothing else, help keep the opponent away. They're fairly cheap to play. Their damage is okay, and they keep your resources up, either by pushing the opponent away, on top of drawing cards, or allowing you to just escape. Jin doing a fairly standard opening here. Attempts to corner the opponent, but ends up eating sweep in the process. Not a particularly great start, but it does help establish a better range. Due to the way that Rachel's ability works, she has a much harder time escaping the corner than she does just walking away from the opponent. Losing both Crystal Strikes this early means that Jin does not have access to Overhead, which is both a reliable way of building up gauge, but also a reliable way of closing the game. Rachel choosing to build up options. Due to the way that Rachel's kit works, she's primarily reliant on trying to get bonuses from things like boosts and traps. She has a few reasonable things you can throw out, though the power bonuses tend to be fairly low. Not only are they low, but they tend to be very strict in their requirements. 3 damage if you're in this space. 1 damage if you're in this space. 1 power if you're in this space. Now, the fact that she has somewhat reliable access to some bonuses that allow her mid-speeds to be a bit more functional, pushing, speed bonuses, it does give Rachel a slight advantage. Spending Moonsong. Fairly straightforward change card action. Replaces 2 far less usable cards with 4 much better ones, hopefully. Range 2 speed, very dangerous. Allows for spike drop plays. Allows for much safer whirlwind plays. And speed 5 spike is pretty dangerous to deal with. Crossing out is not something Jin wants to do in this matchup. Looking at a strike, this is probably Jin's DP. Which, if it is, I believe that's 4 damage we're looking at. Oh no, it's Sweep! Into EX Spike. I'm not sure the EX was required here. It is 6 power. But a 5 power spike would have done just as well. That was actually an extremely dangerous play, playing Sweep there. Spike was still probably the #1 play. The only real threat there was looking at things pretty much just Assault. Unfortunately, losing both spikes means we have a lot less pressure in this corner. Jin striking. Question is with what? Dual Ice Strike is a pretty reasonable option at this range. Assault is also a very reasonable option. Instead, we're going with Focus. Takes the trade, but it is lost value for Rachel. With both a life advantage and a resource advantage, Rachel's doing pretty okay for herself. Question is, what is she going to do in this corner? The longer she stays in the corner, the longer Jin has options that are effective against her. We're looking at pretty strong value in Dual Ice Strike. It's effectively a block. But when it works hard. Because that's 3 power and 3 armor with advantage. It's basically as good as hitting with Ryu's Donkey Kick. Retreating to range 3 and playing an attack. This feels like a dive. It's an expensive dive, but it would be a pretty good dive. This technically would also be a really funny assault, but probably not worth the expense. I think I would counter the mid-speed part of this equation. And instead, we are seeing Assault into Sweep. Very funny mix-up. And there's the dive that I expected. It was honestly not a terrible play. But unfortunately, spending the 2 cards to establish range to do this pretty much canceled out the advantage. Seeing defend at range 1 is pretty funny. Rachel's options aren't particularly strong. And the ones that are, I don't think defend really helps much against. This does help defend against really weird plays, like playing Bond Lily at this range. And if nothing else, this does allow Jin to do things like throw range 1 Assault with impunity. Playing Scorn to help establish some sort of range advantage. If I'm not mistaken, Jin's goal at the moment is to reach 4 gauge and exceed. But it's been rough going. Only 3 gauge with 12 life remaining is a pretty big deal. If I were on Jin's side of the table, I would have probably played some earlier things differently. But on top of that, I think my goal here might be to try to use my Astral. But given that we've seen 0 blocks, Rachel should have the opportunity to parry the Astral if that happens to ever be a threat. Given that Jin does have access to his ranged Ultra, it might be worth trying to do chip damage to Rachel to try to get back into the matchup. Say, crossing out to range 5, and then when she tries to throw projectile, he can counter with his Ultra. That might overall be the best way for Jin to actually reestablish an advantage in this game. Moving to mix-up range. Unfortunately, even with both assaults and both spikes down, Rachel still has fairly dominating options. We are looking at a dive and pretty much all of her projectiles. And if she does play her 5-speed projectile, I don't think there's any way for Jin to get in. If he has Moonsong, I'm pretty sure it counters any play except for Tempest Dahlia. A bit unfortunate for Jin. Has to blow Force to not take damage here. Otherwise, this pretty much is equivalent to Rachel just passing her turn. Jin choosing to take the damage here. Generally speaking, spending 1 Force for 2 life is a pretty good trade. Given that the majority of attacks end up spending 1 Force for 1 power. The question is, Jin, what's the follow-up here? Range 3 is a lot worse than Range 2 in terms of being able to get some free damage in. Unfortunately, I think almost all of Jin's Range 3 options are down at this point. We're looking at, I think, an Assault, and I think a Dive. And Moonsong without Overhead is not a Moonsong worth playing at this point. I'd almost say that this is the perfect opportunity to reshuffle. We're not really looking for using the Astral at this point, though if we get the opportunity to, it's definitely worth it. The more important thing is just get our options back. We're out of a lot of options. Technically still have both crosses, most of our ultras. Oh, defending at range 3. Technically safe right now. I don't think I like it. That spike could have been spent on something to establish a value advantage. Like preemptive spike. In my opinion, as someone who plays Jin way more often than I actually want to, Jin's biggest advantage is having preemptive strike. I mean, that and having overhead. Overhead allows Moonsong to be extremely free as a game ender. And preemptive strike allows you to basically do the same exact thing, but with spike. These are pretty much the crux of your damage. Haven't seen a Violent Ice yet. Pinpoint Strike is probably Jin's best boost. It's immediate advantage on top of +1 power. So I'm wondering when we're going to see that get played. Rachel establishing the range to get hit by Jin's Ultra. But we're gonna parry it, I think. We got Moonsong, we got Violent Ice, and we have Diving Cross. These are some really strong cards. And I believe we've seen both Foci from Rachel. If we haven't, getting rid of the dive is probably the most important thing. Choosing the corner, with that hand, I would agree. Now, Rachel's slow options are dwindling, so Violent Ice is becoming an actual offensive tool. Unfortunately, without Spike as a threat, Electric Chair is almost 100% safe. Rachel's still advantaged here, especially given her deck contents. But depending on how Jin plays out the rest of their deck, they might be able to just pull back an extremely strong comeback. It's going to be dependent on how they spend their gauge. Rachel, honestly not that much worse for wear given the circumstances. Given that there's not a whole lot she can do against defend here, it might be worth just boosting. There's the focus. Unfortunately, leaving the dive in hand means that this is going to be a significant disadvantage. We're looking at 4-power spike drop. Jen, unfortunately, has been at the wrong end of multiple mix-ups and left a dive in hand when he really shouldn't have. Choosing to exceed at this point. Suppose with Rachel having only 2 cards in hand remaining, this is probably not the worst option. The goal here is to just avoid dying to a 6-power attack. In Rachel's case, this is probably a moment where you spend all your gauge to draw cards. She's cornered, so her only real option is to weather the onslaught. With this big of a life gap, having the most cards possible pretty much ensures that you have free value whenever you need it. There's only so many times Jin can strike into you before his 6 life depletes. Scorning into the corner. This might be Violent Ice. In fact, I would pretty much bet everything on this being Violent Ice. I'd probably rather play something like Overhead Cross. That way I can establish power, I can establish range, I can threaten my other Ultra. And, since I'm exceeded, this other Ultra gets a pretty hefty bonus. Instead, we're looking at dual Ice Strike into Electric Chair. Pretty good trade for Jin. Rachel will be forced to discard a card before she draws. reminding the player to activate their overdrive effect. Now we're looking at scary options. Preemptive. I don't know if Jin has any spikes left, but if he does... Actually, the obvious answer is that he doesn't have spikes left, but he does have permafrost. That's going to be a very nasty 7 power at 6 speed. Rachel's only real recourse is going to be having EX Cross or EX Whirlwind. Technically Electric Chair, if she has it, will win the game. Focus also will do the job. It was the start of a good comeback for Jin. Unfortunately, being at 6 life makes things far more dangerous. One unlucky sweep, or just getting hit twice, pretty much ensures your doom. That will put 2 games in Mew2mi's favor. So we've seen 2 zoners from Mew2mi, which makes me think that Fighter Enchantress is coming out next. On Fusion Friend's side of the board, we have a few very interesting, aggressive characters from Season 3. I'd honestly be happy to see any of them come out. Lyson's probably my favorite of the 4. But I have been known to play mean games with the other 3. So I think overall for Jin, ran out of options very early. Ran out of good options very early. And so I think the correct play was to either reshuffle at a much earlier point in the game, or to just start cycling hand with change cards. So between not having great options available and effectively losing, I think, 2 mix-ups, Jin was in a world of hurt. I think I would have rathered see the chip damage plays. They were not great, but I think would have established a little bit of... at least a better lead than he had. The Rachel plays were pretty much spot on the entire game. She was in awkward positions, but she pretty much always had the cards she needed. Being in the corner when you have focus and electric chair, not a big deal. The trick with fighting zoners is that you need to know when them being in the corner is actually a weakness for them. Because a lot of them tend to have abilities that allow them to escape the corner, or if they can't, they tend to have incredibly good defensive tools. So we are now looking at Ken versus Enchantress. This is kind of a funny matchup. Enchantress is a character that pretty much has infinite resources. But despite having all of that, her boost kit isn't great, and her damage output is kind of garbage. Even when she spends 3 gauge on Ultra, she tends to only be hitting for 6. Ken, on the other hand, is everyone's favorite mix-up king. Him being able to get in is pretty much assured, especially if he exceeds. In fact, I think Exceed Ken is the correct option in this matchup. Allows him to get in, he gets card draw, and then he gets to strike. It's pretty much free real estate. Now, unfortunately for Enchantress, if she does try to zone Ken, Ken does have Hadoken. Unlike Ryu's Hadoken, which is absurdly fast, Ken's Hadoken just kills you. And then if he does have Gauge, he can switch from using his Hadokens to using Gurren-sen Pukyaku. The 4 guard is pretty much enough to deal with anything Enchantress throws at him. And since it hits at up to range 4, it's a pretty hefty counterattack. Enchantress throwing an attack right off the bat. It could be an early spike. Able to establish 5 damage this early in the game is actually pretty substantial for Enchantress. Ken's range 3 options aren't great. Ken, despite being a close-range monster, tends to only really like range 2. Ooh, spicy block. Enchantress establishing an early advantage with the mid-speed. It's not crazy value, but it may cost Ken some force, if nothing else. And losing a force and a life is more than nothing. I think the thing I dislike about that the most is that Ken loses one of his best matchup tools. Assault is fantastic for pretty much anyone that wants to establish close-range fighting. And Backstep, with a Gauge, that's the good stuff. That's a critical Hadoken. It's really hard to deal with 6 power at 4 speed. So the question here is, does Ken throw a mix-up? Or does he throw one of his great boosts down? Because this is definitely a position to try to threaten Tatsumaki in. Oof. Kind of a wimpy Shoryuken into a focus. Shoryuken isn't that much better than Grasp, honestly. It's one extra power, but you don't get to establish any sort of range position. And you throw away Burning Passion, which is a fantastic boost. Interesting. Throwing down Defend at this range. Enchantress may just be trying to stall. And stalling interferes is not terrific. Question is, what do we do at this point? In Enchantress's case, it might be worth using Flying Charge. It'll pretty much assuredly get her out of this position and not get punished. Instead, we're looking to parry Sweep, which is very strong play. Removes a very common threat from a character's kit. Looking at what a 3-card Ken can do. The answer is, if he has Knee Bash, he plays Custom Combo. That'll give him 2 cards and a threat if Enchantress passes turn back to him. Otherwise, in this scenario, might be worth threatening Tatsumaki. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of other range 1 threats that Ken has. I think we're looking at basically Sweep, Tatsumaki, and Assault. Frost also isn't a terrible option. If Flying Charge gets played at this point, we're looking at a range 3 Enchantress, which definitely gets stuffed by a whole lot of things. But not Focus. Assault, on the other hand, definitely gets stuffed by Focus. It's pretty much a 100% even trade, but it doesn't feel great. Paying 2 force for critical attack to reload hand. This is effectively a +3 power boost at the moment. Assuming that Ken plays from hand. The longer the Ken stalls for against this boost, the less effective it becomes. So in this case, it might just be worth drawing cards. Can't believe we're at 4 gauge already. Opposed to last game where Jin didn't get to 4 gauge until what? 11 life, I think? This is definitely a massive shift in gameplay. I think in this position I would probably want to cross if I were to play anything. And then of course lose to the grasp. Oh, even worse, we lose Tatsumaki grasp. That's gonna hurt. That's a 5 power grasp. And I'm gonna assume that Ken gets shoved into the corner. No, pushed out. Interesting. I would have probably pulled him into the corner and then pretty much immediately struck. We'd be threatening Cross and Spike at that range. So, range 3 Ken, what do we got? I mean, Enchantress has a lot of options that she can utilize at this point. Spiral Orb ain't that bad. Magic Shot at this range is a little weak. Depending on how we play, we can get Homing Orb to land. We can do a reading into Homing Orb. I think players are skipping turns. Looking at light at this range, good play. Ken committing to the Exceed mode. Gets resources, gets to avoid the light. At least most of the light. And here is where I think the game shifts gears. Any turn that Ken wants to get in is a turn where he can immediately strike. Unfortunately, he can't boost and then use the ability, unless the turn gets passed back to him. Looking at reestablishing range 3. Unfortunately, if Ken closes in now, that +2 speed is going to be a problem. Now the question is, what does Enchantress have for options? I think both spikes are still available. I think in Ken's position here, you have the opportunity for a few different interesting options. You can cross here. True Master is a reasonable play. If the opponent has Dive in their hand, it forces them to spend it. And since that would be Enchantress's second dive, it does limit the amount of options she has for her light. Instead, we are looking at expending Fire Wave for its boost. Now we're even on speed for both players. This is probably a good time to play Homing Orb if available. And if that's the case, Ken should be playing Knee Bash, but he doesn't have Gauge. So that makes that not an option. So what if this were Homing Orb, which it very likely is, what is the best play? And I think the answer is there isn't. Ken unfortunately doesn't have guard on much of anything. I mean, the actual best play would be his Ultra, of course, but we don't have Gauge for that. In fact, I think Ken spending the Gauge to play the boost pretty much destroyed any of his options here. And of course we are looking at Homing Orb, which puts Ken anywhere Enchantress wants. I think one of the bigger skills in Exceed in general is learning when to spend your Gauge as force. Most of the time, your gauge is best as gauge. Your ultras are built around you having a stockpile of gauge. And for Season 3 characters, a lot of them are built around their kits having at least one gauge available. Having the option to turn Knee Bash into a 1-4 is vital for Ken's survival. Having the ability to turn Axe Kick into a 6-speed attack is amazing. Hell, being able to force your opponent to guess whether you're playing a 6-speed Knee Bash, or whether you're just baiting them and playing Tatsumaki, it's incredibly high value. In most games of Exceed, you want to spend your gauge as force only when you need to. We're talking about situations where you have like 2 cards in hand, but 4 cards in gauge. And you say, I don't really have options, and I don't feel comfortable preparing. We're looking at end-of-game positions where you only have 1 or 2 cards in gauge, and there is very little opportunity to get 3 or 4 gauge to do your big game-ending ultra. So instead you spend that gauge as force to pay for strong boosts. So the fact that Ken is currently down to 0 gauge means that anytime Enchantress does anything, he has very few options to use against her. We have Knee Bash. It doesn't do a whole lot without the gauge. We have Hadoken, which is great, even without the gauge. But with 6 power, it really starts doing work. I think overall, playing the True Master with the gauge to spend for force was pretty much the biggest misplay that's happened in this game so far. Ken took his options and he tossed them in the trash. And even having just Knee Bash would have turned that last strike, which was pretty telegraphed, into a extremely good trade for him. So we're looking at a read for dive. And with an EX, it's kind of a question of what the heck get played here. I can tell you, just by looking at the gauge, what it's not. Enchantress has a few things that beat dive here. Shattering Scream. Fire Wave. Oh, not at this range, though. I mean, Magic Shot theoretically. Spike. EX Spike is a really good call out. Because even if the dive's not there, you still beat the slows. It's a really awkward position to be in, that despite having 6 cards in hand, it still might be best to Wild Swing. Because the best way to use reading is to call something that you definitely beat, but also have the ability to beat other things. Usually, if I can't ensure that I'm going to beat something, but I still want to or need to use my reading, I will call block. Worst case scenario, my opponent loses as many resources as I expended on blocking my attack. Best case scenario, they have no idea what I'm playing. Is this going to be the spike? Ooh, no! This is an awkward play. This might turn things around, honestly. We're looking at 3 armor into 5 power. Things aren't great for Ken right now, but it certainly could have gone far, far worse. At this point, taking any trade you can get is value. Now the question is, what does Ken do to turn the game around? We know the contents of his hand. He's got his ultras. Those don't really help. It does mean that he has a true master available. He's got Hadoken, which Enchantress doesn't have much to do against, but he is expending it right now for a power bonus. Having Tatsumaki in hand means that Ken always has a threat that can win a strike. So, knowing his hand contents, I have no idea what he's playing. It's very likely not Knee Bash, because +1 power doesn't do a whole lot for it. We do know that he drew a card. And Overpower Sweep, pretty good play. Now, it's not critical, but if it were X-Kick would be fantastic right now. And we are looking at Sweep. Unfortunately, this is a painful trade for Ken. This will put him at 7 life. Which, if nothing else, at least puts him above the actual scary range of life. He's still basically 2 strikes away from being destroyed, but he's very likely not 1 strike away from being destroyed. Unfortunately, we are passing turn back to Enchantress. And knowing that Ken tossed his Hadoken, there is an opportunity to establish range 4 here.
Someone to hold me tight, that would be very nice. Someone to love me right, that would be very nice. Someone to understand each little dream in me. Someone to take my hand to be a team with me. So nice.
Of course, we are looking at Enchantress, who almost has enough gauge to exceed. The fact that she hasn't is kind of surprising to me. Most characters look at Enchantress as Exceed and they go, yep, pressing that button. It doesn't do a whole lot for her. It allows her to constantly keep her hand at, I believe, 7 cards. But usually people look at the fact that it gives you a free reshuffle. And they go, ooh, I get my options back. So the question here is, what will Enchantress do? Or did they forget who struck again? Drawing 2 and striking. Honestly, not a bad plan at this point in the game. Enchantress being at 13 means that even if she does take a big hit, she'll probably only be at 7. Unfortunately, I think that turn with the homing orb pretty much gave Enchantress a whole 1-strike advantage. Oh, we're looking at a wild swing. Interesting. Haven't kept good track of her options, but she should be able to opt out of any attack she doesn't want to play, and if she pulls Spiral Orb, she should be happy. Oof. This was a very necessary block, but it's a very painful block. You pretty much never want to block sweep unless you have to. Oh no, and we're losing Tatsumaki. That is unfortunately Ken's comeback card at this point in the game. Spending one of the Shinryukens available. Good choice. Always spend Ultras for block whenever possible. Being able to get 4 armor off of 1 card is big, big value. Well, with turn back to Ken, loss of Tatsumaki is a really big deal. It might be worth reshuffling here just to have access to options. It doesn't feel good, but it might be what he needs. Unfortunately, there's only so much edge he can get with the remainder of his deck. We're looking at attacks like Axe Kick, which are fantastic, but with this much of a life disadvantage, playing Axe Kick might be... You're essentially asking for failure. If you pass turn and take trade, you've pretty much lost the game. Now, upside, Axe Kick totally destroys Spiral Orb. So if that happens, Ken is definitely back in the game. Unfortunately, pretty much everything Ken does at this point carries a risk. If we reshuffle, we're passing turn to draw 1 card, and it might not be useful. If we toss our hand into the trash, then we're losing out on the ability to threaten a Shinryuken to win the game. But we do get a fresh hand that actually can do things. If we just commit to a crit Axe Kick right here, getting hit by Grasp will suck. Going for the true master play. Now Axe Kick is scary. Now Axe Kick is impossible to beat. Axe Kick actually just comes just a moment away from winning the game for Ken at that point. I think the humorous thing to me in this match is that this has basically been like Grappler Enchantress. We haven't seen a whole lot of zoning. Most Enchantress players rely on the ability to just draw as many cards as they need to just zone out the opponent and force them to waste resources. Which, I can understand not doing that against Ken. Ken will throw Hadouken at you. Ken will walk at you. Now, I'm going to be extremely excited if Enchantress attacks here, because we are just asking to get hit by Axe Kick. It is not a situation you want to end up in. Getting hit by Axe Kick and then passing turn. Oh no. Whew. Is this EX Grasp? I don't know if she has EX Grasp. I don't remember her playing Fierce at any point. Oh no. I do remember her playing Grasp at one point. Do we just go for the crit Axe Kick from the top deck? Do we have other options? Come on, do the crit Axe Kick top deck. You know you want to. How many cards do we have left? 9. 9 cards. Everything hinges on this. I think we're at enough of a life disadvantage that we take the risk. This is definitely... Oh no, please, please crit. Please crit. I want you to crit this. I don't even care if it's not Axe Kick. I just want you to crit it. Oh, we're looking at Gauge. Come on, no crit! No crit! Oh. I mean, it's dive. Dive ain't great here. Oh, man, and it was Spiral War. It would have been destroyed by Axe Kick. Poor Ken. Could not top deck the card he needed. Definitely top decked a card he didn't want. Oh. I'm depressed. I'm sad for Ken. Well, turn passes. I would call that a losing strike for Ken. Not being able to cash out on True Master hurts. Oh, I would really want to reshuffle here. We are unfortunately in a position where reshuffling is like both the best and the worst action to take. Your Hadoukens are down. Your Ultras are down. Your Tatsus are down. You got Axe Kick. Everyone loves Axe Kick. Oh, it's not worth trying to pull for Axe Kick from the deck at this point. You need better options. 5 power isn't gonna help you at this point in the game. You need the big threats. Looking at a single card, is this 4-speed Axe Kick? Unfortunately, I don't think this is much of a mix-up. It's either something you don't want to play slow against, or it's cross. And honestly, I'm okay with losing to cross at this point. The life totals are... They're drastic enough that losing to cross isn't going to harm me that much. And it puts Ken at a range that, honestly, I'd prefer him to be at. Like, I guess it could be Assault. Okay, cross is pretty safe here. Yep. Just don't get hit by the mid speed. Easy. Now we're in trouble. Now we just get hit by Fire Wave. Yeah. Yeah. You throw Homing Orb, you throw Fire Wave. You can dive into him at this point. Though that might be a 3-force expenditure now that I'm thinking. It might not be unlimited. Yeah, what's the plan, Ken? I don't think there's much of one. Range 5 is a very bad place to be. We got really greedy with the mid speed. It's oof. Well, good job. You avoided the Homing Orb. It wasn't Homing Orb. Well, that's gonna end the set at 3-0 in Mew2mi's favor. Fusion Friend, unfortunately, gets crushed by 3 zoners in a row. Unfortunately, itty-bitty misplays, like, I'm gonna spend a gauge so I can play True Master. They come up to bite you. I think it's imperative that players who want to get better at the game competitively need to pay attention to the way they play their games. Review the footage. Hopefully have someone point out where things could have gone better, what they could have done differently. Which, of course, is on the onus of commentators to give good commentary. But overall, every little thing that you do in a game of Exceed can pretty much make or break your game. I think things could have went a lot differently here if Ken had the available knee bash for the homing orb play. We've seen the life values much closer. So, in review, our round 1 game was Sagat into Propellor Knight, which really could have gone either way in terms of matchup. But overall, Propellor got punished for not making use of their effective resource advantages where they had. Choosing to close in when Sagat had no real options against them pretty much sealed the deal. And Game 2, being Jin against Rachel, mostly came down to Jin getting really unlucky. Different decisions could have been made, but whether or not they would have mattered is a different situation altogether. I'm going to hop into the Discord call with the other players to talk to them.
Oh, there he is.
There he is.
How y'all doing?
We heard you talking about us. There he is.
Yeah. Can you turn off your Twitch stream fusion because there's echo? Oh, you did. Okay, cool.
So,
Alright.
how did you guys feel about your game?
It was so much fun.
Yeah. I enjoyed the games. The only thing I'm genuinely upset about is in the first game, I set a strike and asked, "Can I set a different strike instead?" And he said yes. If I played the strike if I decided to go with the first go around, it would have worked. But that's about it.
Yeah. I mean, sure you played very solid. It was very exciting.
It was a very interesting set of games to watch, especially considering that one side played only zoners.
Did I? Wait, hold on. Rachel is... oh, yeah.
Rachel, yeah.
Rachel, Enchantress, and who was the third one? I forgot again.
Sagat. Mr. Tiger
Oh,
Shot
yeah.
himself.
You know what? You're right. I don't even like zoners.
I don't believe you.
It seemed to work out.
I don't see Sagat as a zoner, to be honest. He's more like a brawler who just happens to have ranged options.
Well, Sagat definitely loves his range 3. He loves being able to throw his fast dives and his tiger destructions and his tiger shots.
I was about to say anything, but I don't want my enemies to, like future enemies, to have that, because that can still happen. God damn it. I'm gonna say is, I was theorizing one matchup and I was practicing it with one of my teammates. And I fucking couldn't win. It's just impossible. There is one matchup which I fear. If it happens, I just...
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm new to Exceed, but this is my first foray into playing the game against people from the server.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my first tournament. I've been playing for 2 months.
Yeah, it's always interesting for me to watch new players because they always play far differently than the people that have been playing since Season 2 playtesting.
Actually, Potter, what's your commentary on everything that happened? Because I'm sure you saw some very weird...
Oh, I cannot wait to see the VODs.
Yeah, me too. Oh my god, you're right.
I mean, my commentary style is a lot on prospective plays, what I think the players have in their hands based on what they're doing at the time, based on what I would be doing, assuming optimal situations. Sometimes I miss things. There's a few things that I miss because I can't look at discard piles, so I have to go purely off my own memory.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we have to pay more than one card, and then the deck tracker just can't process anymore.
yeah, this is why I don't use a deck tracker, because it's too much work to pay attention to what's happening in the game and give reliable commentary.
That's fair.
So
Fair enough.
I prefer to just go off my own memory, and it helps me get better as a player, because I can then improve how my memory works.
Yeah, same.
So, my commentary on the games, I generally point out various misplays that I think cost the game. For instance, in the first game, Sagat was getting severely punished. He lost both of his Tiger uppercuts really early, which meant that he couldn't use the boost on them to create a huge close range advantage. But eventually, Propellor got to range 5, when Sagat had no range 5 options, but Propellor kept closing in instead of building up resource advantage.
I see.
So I think that cost you in that game. The Jin Rachel game was mostly just bad luck. There
Really?
were things that I would have done differently, but I think you lost 2 mix-ups that pretty much cost you the game. And it
I
was
don't
just
think
hard
it
to
is.
recover from that.
I watched the VODs, but I don't remember many of the mix-ups. But also, I want to say, maybe it was bad luck for him, but also, I didn't draw either of my past specials. So I was just there like, yeah, I want my boost, dude, where are my boosts? And they never came up, and I could never play a lightning rod.
Yeah, lack
But
of
I'm
lightning
really glad
rods
that
is
game
funny.
I'm really glad that game ended right there, because I showed my hand after that, I was really out of options. If I didn't kill him there, I would have probably just lost.
Yeah,
The ultras there are very sad. I had to like change cards, which is bad, because like you wanna exceed to place like the boost, but then you don't wanna because you wanna change cards, like
yeah.
worst feeling ever as Rachel.
As Rachel, trying to get a deck that cooperates with you feels like most of the struggle, because
It's very nerve-wracking. I'm really glad I got her out of the way. I don't wanna play her anymore.
she's probably looking at your team. I think she's probably like the hardest character to play on the team.
Really? Are you
Yeah.
saying I have only easy characters, or are you saying that she's just hard in general?
I mean, I think you played your 3 hardest characters during this set
I
here.
think I agree. I think I agree.
The rest of it
I
should be a little bit more straightforward.
I mean, I would say Bison is harder than Sagat. Bison has like a lot of choices to make.
It's pretty much dependent on what your playstyle is, which one is harder.
It also depends on the opponent. Like if there is someone who like Sagat versus Bison, you just cry, because like he's just gonna outrange you. Like let's say you ever get to range 8, you know, Sagat versus Bison. Bison can just concede because you just play low Tiger Shot like 5 times. That's like 30 damage.
But that's what Bison teleports for. You just close 5. Easy.
I mean, what if he doesn't get it?
Well, I guess you should have changed cards earlier.
You know what? You're right. Fine.
That's the
I mean-
trick with Exceed. It's not really a random game. If you hate your hand so much that you feel like it can't do anything,
Yeah,
Just
toss it
throw it
away.
out.
Toss it away. Yeah.
I mean, I probably should have reshuffled in game 3 at some point.
oh yes, definitely.
But I had so many. The problem was I had so many ultras, and I had a full hand that I didn't really want to discard.
So
But I guess in the end, it probably would have been worth it.
So, one of the tricks I like doing there is just spending everything anyways, because then I can curate the hand that I want.
That's something Tyran can also set, you know.
It also just helps you get closer to reshuffling at that point.
That's
I also
true.
like doing that, but funnily enough, my hand was very cooperative during like 3 games. Like, there were very few choices where, or spots where I didn't have like 2 things I could play. There were, just not many. Like, the game with Rachel was honestly horrible. It was just like so many bad choices, no like fast speed, but I still like always had something I could do. I was like deciding how to use that EX spike I had on turn 1. Like, you know, the 5-speed one, I just drew EX the 5-speed one, forgot its name. And I'm like, alright, how am I gonna use it?
Yeah, the EX spike play was interesting. I probably would have played a single one, though playing both did call out an assault play. So
No, it beats. Fuck, I'm sorry, I forgot, but it does beat something very important, which I did know he had. Like, I was very confident. Actually, if I look at the bot, I'm not looking at it, but I think he played it later as well. I forgot what it was, but I couldn't break 3 guard, and I needed to break 4 guard, and I needed the gauge. So I was like, okay, so call the thing and EX, and then man, I forgot the train of thought. I really wish I could remember.
there were very clutch plays that game that definitely put everything in your favor. It was going to be hard for Jin to make a comeback.
I'm not sure what his hand was, but I guess luck was on my side for that game, and I really needed with that, like, horrible hand. You could tell we were both unlucky, and just, you know, whatever happened.
I think for Game 3, the turning point was Ken spending his one remaining gauge on putting Brewmaster into play.
At that point, I liked the cards in my hand, and I didn't want to spend them in case, like, I wanted to either, like, try to do multiple things with my hand or something else. Like, do multiple strikes at certain points with my hand at that point or something else. But, yeah, I don't think I even crit at any point during Game 3 either.
No.
You did not, I don't remember a single time you crit. I mean, you did exceed, so, like...
Mm-hmm.
And that's, like, one of, like, the 3 existing matchups in the entire game where exceeding there is actually very good.
Oh, yeah. It's a great exceed mode for that matchup.
Yeah, because, like, you throw off Enchantress, who, like, likes to set up, like, exact ranges. Like, she wants exactly 3 or exactly 2 or exactly 4. But sometimes that doesn't work, so you just keep, like, more different options. So it's like, you set up for 3, but if it doesn't work out and, like, they change stuff or, like, they attack or, like, whatever, you can just play, like, your fire wave or something.
Probably gonna spend some force to close as well. To change up my hand.
Yeah, I mean, you could have, but I think you could have just pressed close one, like, a bunch more during that game.
I think you were at pretty good ranges for most of the game. It's just
2 and 3 is very scary. 2 and 3 is very scary.
That moment that I saw you play True Master with the gauge, I knew it was over because there was nothing you could do against Homing Orb, and it was pretty much a guarantee that Homing Orb was going to get played. It's like, you just held on to it. Just held on to it. You could have played the knee bash and traded, and everything would have been way better.
I was very afraid that knee bash the entire game, by the way, and I'm very glad it never got played.
I was thinking about playing it for so much of the game as well.
Also, there was a spot where you had like 3 cards and you like decided to prep. Instead, you could have just, or no, you closed one and then, that's like when you didn't strike. Instead, you could have just, custom combo and draw 3 cards.
That's true.
Custom combo is clutch.
Yeah, but I wanted to keep it in my hand to use knee bash.
I mean, you can't have everything.
This is true, yeah.
I mean, I wanted to do a lot of things like during all 3 games, but I was like, if I do this and he does that, I just lose on the spot, let's not. But like, there was a point in the game where I was like, you know what? Fine, I'll do it anyway. Because I play a lot against Mist, and he likes to like... How am I gonna explain it? Like, he knows that I like to play safe, and he uses that, so like, to throw off people, I just sometimes do exactly the opposite. Which is something he also likes to do, and it's like, very fun. Very, very fun.
Well, congratulations to you, Mew2mi, for getting your team 3 more points.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. But that was very fun. I hope I get more, like, people fun matchups.
And hopefully you both enjoy your time here and enjoy this very, very strange tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely enjoying it so far.
This was definitely a tournament about people playing characters that they really didn't want to play to begin with.
I mean, I don't
Yeah,
mind it.
I kind of need to learn the entirety of season 4.
I pretty much play everything in season 4 as well, except what's her name? Mo Knight. Who's apparently the best? I don't know. How did that happen? I heard he's the worst, like 2 months later people are saying he's the best. Like, what happened? What's the discovery?
Oh, Mole Knight's an interesting character because he punishes a very common playstyle. But the moment you learn how to play against that, it becomes a much more manageable matchup.
What's the thing he punishes? Zoners?
Mole Knight likes playing against people that play passively, because he gets his bonuses only on his own turn. So it becomes a matter of punishing players who sit back, which was generally the default playstyle, because most of the old player base played with Season 2, which promoted that playstyle.
Yeah, I played a bit of Season 2 as well. It's very passive, like, compared to the other seasons. Interesting insight, though. I still have some passive characters in there, so good to know.
So,
not many.
Any closing comments?
Yeah, good luck to my next opponents.
Yeah, same here. And thanks for playing these games with me. Thanks for you guys for having me.
All right, and
oh yeah, thanks for the stream and the host, both.
Yeah,
yes, definitely. Thanks for that.
I try to fill in where I can.
We appreciate it.
So with that, we'll be finishing our stream for today, and look forward to me playing a horrible tournament match later on.
Oh, it's
great.
Thank you all for being here, and have a good rest of your day.
Same to you. Take care.
Yeah, Twitch chat.